today's card is going to be a little bit different size than we normally do. I've cut my cardstock 8 inches by 8 inches and scored it at 4. And this card will fit in a regular legal size envelope. Now it's going to be a little bit larger, or excuse me, a little bit smaller than that envelope, but that's okay. For my design, the design of the card, I just didn't need it to be any longer than this, but it'll still look very nice in that envelope. And I have a piece of Stampin' Up's Naturals Ivory cardstock that I'm going to be using for a heart design for Valentine's Day, or you could use this anytime for love you kind of card. And I chose this because it has some body to it and it works really well with mist. I've gone ahead and masked off a little bit on the bottom, and you'll see why in just a moment. We're going to make a mask for our hearts using the medium heart punch. I got mine from Stampin' Up. I think these are available other places. I believe Paper Tray Ink sells this, and they may be available at the craft stores as well. I'm using some grid paper. Now, I happen to have this particular grid paper that has a really detailed grid of every 1/10 of an inch. You don't need it to be that detailed. This is just what I happen to have on hand. But you just need something with lines on it to help guide the placement of the hearts. And I'm going to start here sort of towards the middle, and I'm lining up one of the vertical lines with the points in the heart, pushing the punch as far in as it will go. And then I'm going to move over to the right, and I'm going to again line up on the vertical line, but this time I'm only going to come up a couple of marks, not all the way up with my punch, so that I'll have one heart sitting a little lower than the other, and I'm going to do the same thing over here on the left side. Now I have a mask, and the reason I masked off this bottom edge is because I want to place this on my paper and I don't want it to go all the way to the bottom. But since I was using the punch, it had to end up being fairly low on the paper. I'm not going to worry too much about where it goes left to right because I've left this paper a little bit wider than I really need it to be in the end. I'm using some removable adhesive. Now, with that adhered, I'm ready to add some color. I'm going to start with some Distress inks. I've got 3 different colors here from Ranger: the Tattered Rose, the Victorian Velvet, and the Tea Dye. You can do all one color per heart, or you can mix them. Add some different colors. The Victorian Velvet is the darkest, and I'm going to keep that mostly to this middle heart that I'll be doing some stamping over. Yeah, just a touch on one of the others. And I know that I want one of my hearts fairly light because the mist I'm going to use over it is not real dark. It's not a lot of contrast. So I can't make this one super dark. This is the Tea Dye color. Keep that a little bit lighter. And I'm going to add a little bit of it to this other one over here. Alright. Now I'm ready to do some misting. Okay, I have my box and a couple of masks. And this first one I want to mist. I don't want the mist to go on the other 2 hearts, so I'll just lay a piece of paper over those. And the mist I'm using is this Cameo from Studio Calico. It's a little bit lighter colored mist. That's why I needed to keep this one heart kind of light. And the heart over on the far right, I want to mist with this sort of intertwined circles mask. And I also don't want to get mist all over the other 2 hearts. This is a homemade mist. I think it's one of the early ones I created where I just used some dye ink and water. There are lots of videos and stuff online about creating your own mists, using some glue and things to give them a little more body. This one's kind of runny, but it's going to work out fine for this project. It doesn't, there's not enough on there to make the paper curl or anything. Okay, and before I take this up, I want to add just a little bit of the Mr. Huey Overdue. This is a bright red, and it will make everything very red if I get too much on there, so I'm just going to probably do like 1 or 2 sprays. Nothing dramatic there. That's plenty of the red. Okay. Alright, now I'd like for this to dry just a little bit before I pull up the mask. Okay, I'm ready to pull off my mask. I just let it dry for a minute or two, not very long. And very carefully lifting that off. If you use a little bit heavier grid paper, or maybe even some ledger paper that you might scrapbook with, a scrap of that, that you can reuse it. But a mask that's done on this light, a grid paper, it's pretty much a one-time thing. Okay. Alright. That's pretty, except that I got a little bit of color there that I didn't quite intend. I don't think that's going to hurt anything. I could cover that. In fact, I am going to be covering that. I'm going to be using some twine here on my finished card. So that's probably okay. I just didn't quite get these 2 layers close enough. They probably should have overlapped. But nonetheless, I have 3 pretty hearts. I'm not quite done with them though. I have a couple of other things I want to do. Oh, actually one of them I wanted to do before I removed the mask. So I'm going to lay this mask right back over here for just a second. I wanted to do a little bit of stamping here on this middle heart. I'm using some red ink from Stampin' Up. This is Riding Hood Red, and a flourish stamp. Just going to add a little bit more design there to this one because it didn't get a whole lot of interest. Okay. Alright, now that adds a little bit more to that. And then the last thing I'm going to stamp is the word love. And I had this in an old Inka Dinka Do set. I'm going to be spelling I love you. So I need to put love in the middle. Using some brown ink. Sorry, I'm sure I got my head in the middle there. Okay. Alright, and the I is going to be a sticker. I looked around at what sticker sheets where I had a lot of eyes left that wouldn't coordinate with this. I love, and then we'll use chipboard U over here in the final assembly of the card. So let me put this, I'm going to trim this down a little bit and let's put this our card together. I've trimmed down my heart paper to 7.5 inches wide by 2 3/4 high, and I have some scrap or some cuts of pattern paper. Usually I pick my papers and then I do my stamping and inking and all to match them, but in this case, since I didn't know quite how all these colors were going to come together, I had some orangey tones and pink tones and red tones, I did this before I picked the papers. So, so these were the 3 that I ended up choosing, a solid that I ripped and a couple of pattern papers. And I'm going to butt all of these up against the far right edge of the card after I add some distress ink around them, and then we'll come back and put some twine and ribbon on. This is, I think it's going to need a little something up in here, so I'm going to add some faux stitching with a brown zig marker. This is, I believe, the color chocolate. I have the chocolate chip marker that matches the card base here from Stampin' Up, but I like the zig markers for this type of thing because the line is so fine. This twine, I believe it's doodlebug twine. And I like to wrap mine typically twice. I have a little bit of Making Memories ribbon that I want to add to the card. I tried that ribbon all the way around and it was just too much, and I didn't really have enough of it to do that either because I'm making these cards for card class. So using just a little bit and tying the twine over it allows me to have some of that fun polka dot without going overboard. Stretches my stash a little bit too. Okay. And my last step is my chipboard U. Okay, there we go. Alright, I'm going to add a little glue dot underneath this to hold it in place. And there's our card for today. Thank you for joining me today, and please check out my blog for further details.